Welcome to Risky Conversations. My name is Jamie Lee, and why risky conversations? Because everything worthwhile is on the other side of a risky conversation. And today I am, uh, doing away with only talking to women, and I have our wonderful ally, friend, Steve Alexander Jr., who is a licensed mental health counselor, former risk management professional, and founder of New York Wellness Counseling Services, a virtual group therapy practice serving clients across New York and New Jersey. And he holds two master's degrees from Teachers College, Columbia University, and you specialize in working with first generation Americans. That's me. That's me. I'm a first generation American. And
Same
people
here.
navigating multiple cultural, personal, and professional identities. That's me too.
Right.
Yeah. And Steve's work focuses on helping people move beyond limiting labels. Yes, please. Embrace the complexity of who they are and build lives that feel authentic. Welcome to Risky Conversation, Steve.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited about this. Can't tell you about
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Yes. And I met Steve at New York Toastmasters. So I think it was from 2013 to 2017. I was very actively engaged in New York Toastmasters. And by the way, there are Toastmasters all over the world. And New York Toastmasters, we pride ourselves as being like the Ivy League, like the Yale or the Harvard of Toastmasters. We're always oversubscribed. We have amazing authors and consultants and coaches and professional speakers and executives and therapists and, all sorts of amazing professionals who come to New York Toastmasters and give speeches. And when I was actively involved, you were the president of the club. And I just remember always being astounded by how well practice, how well you put together these speeches. I'm like, I remember thinking, this guy's a perfectionist.
Definitely.
Because your speeches were always so like on the nose and so well put together and well rehearsed. I'm like, he's good.
Uh,
Yeah, so I'm so glad to have you on the podcast. And as you know, I'm an executive coach and I work primarily with professional women, like mid-career managers or entrepreneurs, also, service providers, and I help them, make more money, build their confidence, get promoted. And every once in a while, people come to me and I'm like, you should talk to a therapist.
mm,
Like they tell me they're depressed. They tell me they're in a like an abusive relationship, or they tell me things I'm like, oh, this is beyond me.
yeah.
Yeah. So could we start there? Like, when do you think people should seek a licensed mental health counselor's help?
Oh,
And
this is
yeah,
yeah. I love that we're starting there. I have so many reactions as I'm thinking about it, but to be brief, so it's hard. So what happens is you're an executive coach, but
yeah,
you're also a helping professional. So just the fact that people are willing to say I'm depressed or going through domestic violence or abuse shows that there's something healing about what you're providing. So I would say that it's sometimes tough to know the line, but if I had to give an abridged version, I would say once people start talking about things like childhood trauma, if they mention suicide, or if it's things that like think about it, you're there for a very specific reason. I want to help this woman make more money, and you
yeah,
hear all these things that's getting in the way beyond what you normally provide. I would say that's probably when you'd have them go talk to a professional. But it's
yeah,
not like a one size fits all. Some people will come because they're dealing with a death, like I've dealt with. Some people have just had a child and or they're a new time father, and then some people are just sad about communication they have with their spouse. So it like ranges, and all are important.
yeah. And you're right. I acknowledge that there definitely is an overlap, because I work one-on-one with people, and a lot of the tools and techniques I use, they're therapeutic, but it's not professional mental health services.
Yeah.
And sometimes we talk about the past and then we reimagine the past, and then it helps
Huh?
them reimagine the future in a productive way that helps them, you know, achieve the goal that they have. But I think what you just said is spot on. Like if it's like suicidal ideation, or it's grief, or it's like this, depression that really having trouble with, and it's like you really need to be heard and
Mhm.
seen for that human experience, as opposed to a coach who's gonna gently nudge you to take action towards a future that you want. So it's like, someone that's gonna
Got it.
help you be seen and acknowledge the past, and no rush to think about where do you want to go from here? What do you want to do? Right? Those are the kind of questions that I ask.
That's right. That's right. You got it.
Okay, great. And I'm curious, how did you become a licensed mental health counselor? Like, what led you to becoming a therapist?
Oh, great question. And I just want to say how happy I am. Like, number one, we're friends, so it feels very comfortable talking to you. But
Yeah.
I rarely get to tell my story. I just sit and listen most of the time. So I'm so ecstatic. So if you see me smiling, that's what's happening. I'm not like weird or anything. So how did I become a therapist? And it's interesting what you said about Toastmasters, about how I came across Paulus. That was probably one of the worst periods of my life. I was just so I was so rigid and buttoned up, and it was so. One day, if you want me back, I'll come talk about that. But how did I become a therapist? So I'm working in risk management. I'm a first generation American, and I define that just by being like I'm the first person born in America. Right? Parents came here when they were very young, um, but they were like, you got to make a lot of money. I always wanted to be like a veterinarian, or maybe I always said like psychologist. My parents thought, number one, you're allergic to all these animals. You're not becoming a veterinarian. And psychologists, no one's going to pay you to talk to them. So I just abandoned what I thought and I went to school. I was always relatively smart. So I was undecided. I followed my twin sister into college, and she wanted to go to St. John. So I just followed her. I didn't care about college. I went there. Someone told me, hey, do risk management. I was undecided. I said, let me go for it. I hated all the classes. There was one professor who was really cool and I liked him. And I said, you know what? I could probably do this thing. I did one internship and couldn't stand it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I cannot do this the rest of my life. But I'm already in it. I'm doing risk management. So and if I'm talking too fast, let me know. I joined after the internship, I joined the field of risk management and I hate it. When you talk about clinical depression, it goes beyond normal sadness. I had all of those features. I'm crying at work. I'm thinking very fatalistically to say, let's just say it. I thought about killing myself quite a few times. I was very, very sad, depressed, overwhelmed. And then what happened was one day I saw this program for mental health counseling, and it was at Columbia. And someone said, this is a terminal degree. You could start your private practice. I thought I wasn't smart enough for Columbia. So what I told myself was, I'm going to apply to Columbia. They're going to reject me. And then I could get this itch about being a helping professional out of my head. Right. While I'm at work, people are coming to me before they quit. They're telling me about their family issues. So I'm thinking maybe I could do this. But then I said, you know what? You're being scattered. Apply to Columbia. They'll reject you. And now you got to go full force into risk management. They accept me. I do a couple classes. I'm loving it. I got some bad feedback. I could probably tell you about that. But that's how it came about. In risk management, was very overwhelmed, sad. And then I ended up just getting this opportunity and just ran for it.
I think you told us about applying.
Yeah.
Like I remember you submitted the application, right? So this
Yeah.
was like within the last 10 years that
Oh
this happened.
yeah, yeah, 2015. And
Yeah.
interestingly, there was a person that I remember him from Toastmasters. I don't know if you'd want me to say his name, but I remember I'm on my way to the World Financial Center, wherever I was, One World Trade Center, and this person sees me, a fellow Toastmaster, right? He says, "Steve, you look tired," and I almost broke down crying because I couldn't tell him like, I'm depressed. I just don't want to be here. He just, "Steve, you look tired," and I just wanted to crumble, and I always remember that. But yes, so I applied. They accepted me. It was very rocky because I was a non-traditional student. I did not study psychology in undergrad. So all my peers, if I'm talking to us, let me know. All my peers went to school for psychology and all this stuff. I had a business background and
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff. So it was very hard, but they accepted me. I took it and then never looked back.
Wow. Okay. So, your story really resonates with me because I also worked in finance
Mm.
briefly early in my career. And the pain and the suffering in that during that 2 year experience when I worked at a hedge fund during the financial crisis sort of gave birth to the work that I do because I found out that I was underpaid. I was the only woman at an all male trading desk. And I
Mhm.
really, there's just so much sexual harassment that was just casually happening all the time. And I felt depressed. And my body, I have a chronic illness. So, like, my body just kept getting sicker. I kept getting infections again and again. And I remember just thinking, this can't go on, right? I can't, my mind and my body are telling me this can't go on. And I quit, and then I did an internship, and then I pivoted to a completely different career, and then eventually I became a coach. But sometimes, superheroes are made.
Yep.
Superheroes are made by their trial and tribulations, the trauma, right? And you being a first generation American, you being a person of multiple cultural backgrounds, you being a male ally, and you having experienced workplace depression because it was such a bad fit. I'm sure there's such a strength and asset when it comes to supporting clients in your therapy practice because a lot of people feel depressed by their work.
Yeah. You know,
Sometimes they come to me and I'm like, go talk to somebody like Steve,
it's interesting because sometimes I say go to talk to somebody like Jamie because I'll be honest, sometimes I sit with it and I just feel so sad. Like when you were telling your story, I almost felt myself tearing up because you mentioned the chronic illness,
Yeah,
and I know we're privileged to like not be a part of that anymore. But there's somebody listening that's
yeah,
probably 2 years into a hedge fund, they want to leave, and it's just
yes,
hard, and maybe they don't find. Who knows how we've heard about people dying at the desk, right?
yeah.
So yeah, I'm resonating with everything you're saying.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also, my parents, well, my mom, yeah, they also told us, we want you to, be successful and make a lot of money. And so I sort of inverted that. I'm like, I'm just gonna go help other people make a lot of money because to me, that's my satisfaction and fulfillment. Um, but yeah, so much to uncover here. But here's the thing. I'm sure you have had lots of conversations that have become inflection points in your career. And I'm curious, what was one of the riskiest conversations that you have had, whether it was about career direction or otherwise, and
Yeah,
you're like, oh, it felt so risky, but I'm so glad I had that conversation.
there were so many. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna
Yes.
say two, but I'm gonna emphasize one for the sake of time. So one hard one was telling my mom that I was gonna become a therapist because as strong as I think I don't subscribe to hypermasculinity. I never really felt like manly like that. But so I'm sensitive. So my mom, I had to tell her like, I'm leaving the secure job to try and do this thing. We didn't get into it, but I was taking a $30,000 pay cut. So it was just like I was literally it was a nightmare in many ways until it was not. But so I had to talk to my mom about that. That was very hard. But another one was leaving corporate America. So I was having a terrible time. Then, it always happens like this. Probably like 6 months or a year after before I left, I got the most sweetest, nicest manager. I manage people in my practice now. I model it after him. Such a nice person, wonderful. One day I went to him with tears in my eyes on the verge, and he was so sweet. And I said, I got into Colombia and I'm thinking about I don't know what to do. I'm thinking about leaving this place because it's a little harsh and I don't know what to do. And he just said, Steve, if you got into Colombia, go to Colombia. Like that's awesome. And it was just I don't know what I was expecting, but it was such a hard thing for me to muster up the courage. I'm not naturally assertive. I'm very shy by nature. I wouldn't say I'm afraid of people, but I kind of like for instance, if you weren't good at asking questions, I might just sit here quietly and just not say anything. I don't know what's wrong with me. So to go and talk to him was like the hardest thing in the world, and I was embraced with so much love and affection and compassion. It was just great.
Mm. And what do you think it was? What about having that conversation do you think made it feel risky?
Oh, so made multiple parts of it. Once again, maybe one day I'll come back. So think about multiple cultural identities, right? So
Right.
I'm a black male, right? in a space that, I mean, you could probably, I'm not going to say there were none, but I could remember about five out of everyone there. So
Out of
kind
like
of,
hundreds.
yeah. So I'll be real with you. I kind of felt differential to white men at one point in my life. Like I did. So now I'm going to this male who's awesome, but so I'm kind of and you know me, I'm not that tall. So I'm going to this tall white male, and they're good looking and all this kind of stuff, and they have the nice striking blue eyes. I never saw myself as particularly attractive. So now I'm thinking about it as a therapist and going through my experience, but I have to now go to this person and sort of, yes, I'm leaving, but I don't know. And I got to sort of ask permission. And my life is kind of like in the palm of your hand. It really wasn't, but that's what's all going through. So
Mm,
how do I do this? How are they going to take it? And if they say, no, Steve, you can't, I know I can. But because I'm so deferential, I might say, you're right. No, I can't. So I'm thinking about all the things that could go wrong. And even thinking about it now, it's like, oh, it was tough.
right, right. And I
Yeah.
mean, just as a coach, my coach brain kind of turns on, and then I start unpacking how much we end up conflating our sense of identity and self-worth, in the context of this workplace hierarchy. And we forget that all of this is temporary. There's something
Right.
that I tell my clients often, especially when they're unhappy at work. I'm like, this job is temporary. This isn't you.
Right. Right.
You're not your boss of your life. This
Right.
is just for now.
Exactly. Temporary.
Yeah, yeah. And thank you for bringing the multi-layer,
Yeah.
you being different. And I
Yeah.
I remember that feeling, and I coach a lot of people, a lot of women, particularly women from Asian heritage, who also feel like this, like, I'm not white, I'm not a guy. It just seems like things are so much easier for those people who just fit in with the predominant group.
Yeah.
And I just feel like for me, the learning curve is steeper, the promotion curve is steeper, the credibility curve is steeper, and it just feels so much harder for me, because I'm different.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a story. So I have a good friend who
Hmm.
was also working in risk management at the time. And I said, listen, we went out one day. I don't drink like that, but maybe I had a lemonade. He had a beer. I don't know. But I'm
Okay.
sitting with this person. And I said, I got to be honest with you. Like, I don't feel comfortable always as a black male asserting myself in these spaces. And he
Mm.
said, Steve, I hate that you're saying that. And I said, well, why do you hate that I'm saying? He said, because I walk into places and I literally feel like I own it. And you got to start feeling like that as well. This is what he's telling me. He's
Mm.
a white male, and he didn't quite probably understand like all the dynamics. But I was
Hmm.
like, damn, that what a different experience. I
Hmm.
didn't have that. I've never. I feel not wanted in most places that I go to, if I'll be honest with you. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and a lot of my clients, including myself, I can relate to that feeling of like, is it okay? Am I allowed to be
yes,
there?
you
No one's
got
gonna
it.
get mad?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, oh my God, have I spent too long? Who's like, yeah, oh yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you relating. And uh another thing that I wanted to ask you about is I know that, now you're a father.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Uh-huh.
I've seen that you do work with other therapists on the topic of postpartum for
Yeah.
fathers.
Yeah.
And I serve women, so I always hear it from the mother's perspective. I
Yeah.
always hear, like the anxiety around going on parental leave, the
Hmm.
anxiety around, coming back to work and all of that. And I don't think I've ever really fully given myself time to think through what it's like for the dad, especially in this current climate, in these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
In these days, and especially from somebody who does feel marginalized, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I want to hear all about it, like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, I wish I could talk to you forever because this is so easy to talk to you. But yeah, so I will say this postpartum, and I might get
Yeah.
killed for this, but my belief is that postpartum is as unique as a thumbprint. So the way you experienced postpartum, and is different than I would, but there are some themes. So
Yeah.
for me, what I experienced, I don't know that I immediately felt sadness like that, right? And I could tell you about the whole hospital thing. That was the whole thing, but for me, it was anger, and we know men tend to,
Wait, wait,
you know,
wait, wait, wait. Slow down for me because I've never had a child, so I don't know.
okay.
I don't really have context for what you're talking about. And also, So are you connecting postpartum depression?
Yeah,
Post
yeah. Well, we'll call it, so they call it PMADS now. So post maternal anxiety depression something, but it's the same for fathers. The idea is that it's not just depression, there's a whole array of feelings that are triggered or maybe even exacerbated or made worse by this significant life event called parenthood or becoming a father.
Yeah.
You know, so for me it was a lot. It was like men are told you got to be strong, boring, we all know that, but that you have to be a provider. And though in my marriage we take an egalitarian, like an equal approach, you know,
Mhm.
I do dishes, she does whatever, I still felt that need, like I have to be a provider, but I work in private practice now, so I
Mm.
can't just take time off. Whenever I'm not working, I'm not making money. I haven't figured out the game where I'm like have retainers. I just don't, I haven't gotten there.
Mm.
So there was that. So a feeling of, oh, how am I going to provide? And I don't know if I make enough. And, you know, then there was a piece of it like, what do I teach? I'm going to get so deep here. What am I going to, what do I have to offer a woman? I've always considered myself notoriously bad with women. Notoriously. Not as bad as it, like, I'm always the safe guy. People's nice. But I was never like, I never saw myself as attractive. People love talking to me, but I was not the guy that knew women. If anything, I was kind of
Yeah.
clumsy, awkward, rigid. You saw me at Toastmasters, I'm kind of like, you know, rigid. So I'm like, what do I have to offer a little girl at that? So I
Oh,
started
your
questioning, like,
baby girl.
yeah. So I'm like, what? So now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be useless. There's nothing I can teach her, and she's probably not gonna like me because I'm thinking now it's all irrational. But if I didn't connect with women growing up, how am I gonna connect with another little girl, right? So I'm thinking about all that stuff. But then a loss of autonomy. I am reasonably ambitious, and I had all these ideas of things I want to do and to-do lists, and I can show you, and all these goals. And I'm like, once you have a child, it kind of, there's a halt put on it if you're a good parent in a way, because you kind of have to put them first. So now
Yeah.
I'm thinking like, oh, how am I wanted to do this, and think about it. I hope I'm not saying too much. I'm come from a very depressed sort of place. Most people don't know that, and they wouldn't realize it even before school. So I've had this recurring theme of always being very sad and,
Mm.
you know, all that kind of stuff. So I finally figured out what I thought was the key to life. I never had hobbies. Now I have a hobby. I'm figuring out life. I feel happy. I bought a house, and now the baby comes in. I'm like, I feel like everything is going to be taken away from me. And so I was just over exaggerating something, but that was postpartum for me. And then
Yeah.
when the got here, and then the diaper changed, and then when you're in the hospital, this is what I was going to get to. When you're so rightfully so, the mother gets all the attention. So they put the baby on the mother for the first hour or something. And it's like I went completely, I was a goat. No one cared about me.
Mm.
I'm in the corner. I'm like, this is the word. Like, you know, I just felt lonely in the corner. And I get it. The wife went through everything and all that kind of stuff. But I was like, and then the baby wasn't too attractive at first. I'm like, this baby's ugly. I'm just being honest.
You're being so honest.
I vowed in my life to just, as I am with clients, I don't like lying because then I got to remember it. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this baby looks like an alien or something foreign, and is it gonna? And then she was light skinned, so I'm like, no, like what? You know, I'm not a light skinned person, so I'm just thinking all this weird stuff, and gradually it got better. I love my baby; she's adorable in many ways. I can show you a picture one day, but yeah, so it was all of that. I'm sorry if I rambled, but yeah,
No, no, you're just being totally
right,
raw, honest, and vulnerable. I appreciate you being this vulnerable with me. And you're just being, yeah, again, like a lot of people have those thoughts and they just hide it, mask it, repress it, suppress
right,
it, right?
right.
Um, yeah, and and I have to say, every once in a while you say some like self-deprecating things.
Yeah.
Um, I I don't know. This is my personal bias, but like, when men are actually vulnerable with how they really feel, it draws people in. You're like,
Oh,
wow, you're
yeah.
a human just like the rest of us.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
soft and squishy on the inside, just like the rest of us.
I'm the most softest, squishiest person that you'd ever meet. Like, I think people don't like me easily. And I worked through a lot of that, to get me wrong, but I'm very sensitive. My father told me when I
Yeah.
was younger, he said, Steve, you're a good kid, but the one problem you have is that you're just, it was either too nice or you care about people too much. And that sent me on a rampage. Once again, if you ever want me to come back and talk about like gangs and stuff like that, I turned into a different person. I made myself a monster because I was like, I don't never want to be this girly part back then. I want to be tough. I want to be, very,
Mm,
very, it just kind of made me spiral. But yeah, naturally very soft and squishy on the inside.
yeah. Yeah. Um, well, that's really fascinating because I mean, I have went through a very brief stint in my life where I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna be angry at all the injustices and the inequities. And I went to
Mm-hmm.
Smith College, so I was exposed to, feminism and activism. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be, and then I'm like, oh, this is exhausting. It's kind of
It
tiring.
is.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
is.
yeah. And
Yes.
yeah, for me, I'm a highly sensitive person. And as a woman, as an Asian woman, like it's almost like expected, but
Mm.
I have to imagine as a black male, like it goes against people's expectations. And
Yes.
those expectations, like we should question those expectations, but I
Mm-hmm.
just want to acknowledge it just makes it a little bit more difficult when how you are
Yes.
um is not what most people think how you will be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um So tell us more. Tell us more about where your practice is
Yep.
going now. I love that, you're working with people, first generation Americans,
Yeah.
multiple cultural, personal, professional
Uh-huh.
identities, like,
Uh-huh.
yes, people
So
of
I
marginalized yeah, tell us more.
So it's interesting. So every marketing person, which marketing has been like a challenge for me. I don't know why, but they say you got to find a niche. So come up with your ideal client and
Yeah.
who would you want to. So I thought about myself and I'm like, okay, who would I like working with? So it became very awkward. So I'm a black male, I'm a Catholic. There's another thing that people don't understand, which informs kind of how, so I had all these identities and all of them have made me feel at one time or another that I just don't fit in.
Mm,
I felt like I don't fit in with black people sometimes because,
mm,
my church wasn't all black and all that stuff. So I was like, who do I want to help? So I thought first generation because it was just easy. I'm first generation. But then I'm like, I want to help people who don't fit neatly in a box. That you can't just pin one thing on them. And then that's how it kind of unraveled or whatever the case
yeah.
would be. That was for me. Then I started hiring some clinicians. And then so I got people. So I personally specialize in trauma. So EMDR, things like that, flash therapy. These are trauma techniques. But we have people that work with deaf and hard of hearing. We have people who just work with women issues, mother issues. So, it's a big spread, and it probably is confusing because you're like, okay, well, then who's your target audience? I don't quite know. It's being defined every day. But I like to think of people who struggle with multiple identities. They feel caught between different worlds, their
Yeah.
parents' expectations versus their expectations, and forming a new culture for themselves. So that's where I like to say the sweet spot is located in New York. We're all virtual. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
accessible.
there's a lot of us.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of us, millions of us, especially in the New York, I mean, like in the Eastern Seaboard, right? Many of us are children of immigrants, and yeah, I mean, we're like the melting pot identity experience.
And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I'll tell you my experience. So very quickly, I know the time. When I was growing up, I didn't feel black enough or Caribbean enough. So I'm Caribbean American.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel like an African American. I always felt kind of, hard checking that box. But then I don't feel Caribbean because if I go over there, they call me a Yankee. Like they don't consider me like
I'm
a
just like that.
holy.
I'm just
Yeah,
like you. When I go to
yeah,
Korea, they treat me like a foreigner. I don't do the Korean makeup and the skin bleaching. I don't do
yeah,
that.
right.
I don't really follow K-pop. I mean, yeah, I don't care about K-drama. Like I don't dress like I don't like straighten my hair. And I don't really feel like the typical American, right?
Huh? Uh-huh.
But I am a naturalized citizen. I am American.
Yeah.
And then I don't really have a lot of Korean American friends because there's some aspects of Korean culture I like, but I'm very picky. Yeah, I get that. I get that. And so I love just hanging out with people who feel like misfits.
Right. Yes. Have you ever heard
Yeah.
of third culture kids?
Yes, I have heard of
Okay,
third.
yeah. If
Yeah.
it was the target audience, that's what I kind of go for. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something really fun about that because we get to have this bicultural or multicultural fluency, but just
Right.
as you said, like sometimes we don't feel really at home in any.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
And I guess the challenge is how do we feel at home within ourselves?
Yeah, that's what it is. Because the
That's
beautiful
it.
thing, you want to, so that my way of thinking is that people feel like, how do I fit in the box? How do I fit in the box? But then my thing is, I want to help you realize you were never meant to fit in a box. Never. And then once
Right.
people embrace that, they just, because the anxiety goes down, the stress level goes, it doesn't fix everything in their life, but they feel like, yeah, I'm good. No, I don't got to fit in this and this. No, I'm good exactly how I am. So you're understanding it.
Right. We don't need to fit in a box. We were never meant to fit in a
Right.
box.
Right.
Amazing. So what's like what's ahead for you? What are you looking forward to with your practice with
Yeah.
yeah.
So between you and
Mhm.
I haven't
And
shared.
everyone listening to this
Yeah, and
podcast.
everybody, well, yeah, and everybody. I don't know how many people that would be, but this is a very nice podcast. And I wanted to say this. I know someone that has worked with you, and they told me they were like just glowing, glowing. It's a mutual obviously we both know them, but so
Oh,
that's really cool. As far as the practice, I'm thinking I really like supervising and training. So I have some people who are either very close to being licensed or provisionally licensed. So I'd like to take more people on. I love teaching people about therapy because I feel like there's a very right way, and a very wrong way. Now, it isn't art. It's not necessarily a science, but I just don't like the kind of therapy people come to me and tell me that they're getting. They're very manualized, very cold, and disconnected, and I hear so much kind of stuff. So in terms of to be on track, as you can see, I have a little bit of attention issues. With the practice, I want to train more clinicians and attract more people so they can at least. I often tell people just try one therapy session. I'm also not the kind of person where I say, well, based on the fact that you're exhibiting these signs and symptoms, I think you need to be here forever. No, come for one session if you want, or just a consultation, and you never have to come back again. But I wish people had the same experience I did when I first went to therapy. So it'll be attracting new and good clinicians, new clients, and then I'm working on a book, hopefully. Yeah, if I can find a publisher, it'll be great. So a book that teaches about therapy, but is also like, I would say like a thriller, but it would be good. Trust me.
a thriller about therapy.
And it teaches you about therapy too. So
Teaches
that's
you
the
about
thing.
therapy, but is
Yeah,
a thriller.
it's
Okay.
woven in there, and it seems very hard to. But I'm telling. So imagine a nice story where you're hearing the ideas of. I don't want to give too much away, but it'll be awesome. I love writing too. So in terms of the practice, that's where I'm thinking about going. I got to figure this marketing thing out so I can get out to more people. But yeah, and I'm always honing my skills at being a better therapist. I love doing what I do.
I also love doing what I do, and just like you, I'm like a nerd about learning how to be a better coach and how to help people create change. But now I'm curious because you mentioned this in a quick aside.
Yeah.
What was your first therapy session like?
Oh my God. Oh, thank you. Good question. How much time do we have? Okay. So what happened is, let me tell you like this. So I'm becoming a therapist. My family says we don't go to therapy, right? Like there's nothing wrong with you, and like that's kind of shameful, all that stuff, whatever. So I go to my school. Remember, I'm going through like this weird transition where I'm coming from corporate America, and
Hmm.
in my mind, I want to be aggressive and I want to be, because this has been taught to me. I want to be the best therapist ever. So I go to my teacher and say, my professor, how do I be the best therapist? And they said, Steve, is not going to be from the textbooks. I'm going to tell you right now. If you really want to be a therapist, you got to go get it. You got to go find a therapist yourself. So I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, I'll try. They know that at Columbia they're like world renowned, right? So I go to this therapist, and I don't remember if she asked me any questions. I just spilled my heart out, and I just left feeling like the sky was pink or made out of candy. That's how I often like made it. That's what it felt like. I just like a high. I don't know. It just felt so awesome talking to this person, letting everything out, and
Yeah.
then yeah. So that was my first experience, and then at Columbia they only allow you like 6 sessions. So I went for 6 sessions, and at the end, I'm sharing a lot here. I told she said, "Okay, we're coming up to the 6th session." I said, I feel like you don't like me. I don't know why I said. I said, do you not like me? Like, why do you want to get rid of me so easily? And she's like, no, I do like you, but you're just limited or something like that. But since the experience was like, I'm sharing a lot about myself, but and this was like 10 years ago, guys, so don't judge me. So after those sessions, I went and found a therapist. So I'm on a train, I'm tell you real
Yeah.
fast, New York City, and I have my book. I'm reading and nodding off, and it says it's a textbook they give you called Foundations of Counseling.
Yeah.
And this lady, older lady, passed by, said, "Oh, it's a nice book. I'm a therapist." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." And she's like, "Oh, here, if you're ever looking for a therapist, just let me know." And me, because I'm so insecure, I'm like, "See, that's just a pleasantry. You know how Americans are today." So I'm like, I call her and I said, "Well, you said you're doing this therapy thing. Is it okay if I try?" She tells me how much she charges, and then I'm like, "I just know I could afford that." At the time, I'll be honest, I'm like, I'm a college student. She tells me a rate. I'm like, I can't afford it. She said, "Well, how much can you afford?" I said, "I think I can afford $35." Man, like I'm like a kid, like I think I can afford maybe 35. I'm not working. I said, "You know what? We'll treat this like a scholarship." And I still have that therapist to this day because I love this person, and I the type of therapy I do with her is like a lot more long term, exploring things. It's beyond just symptom management, which I try to help people too. So that was my experience with therapy. As I got into it, and I love it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I guess that's the key, one of the key differentials. Because with a coach, like I help people achieve a goal and then they achieve the goal and we're like, okay, you want to do a little bit more, but you're off to the races. But sometimes like I know
Yeah.
other people who work with a therapist, it's like a lifelong relationship.
Yeah, long
Oh,
term.
yeah.
Yeah, the idea is that, at least for me, so a lot of people, and even the people I work with, they probably don't want, and that's fine. But for me, I saw it as there's something called the Johari's window. I don't know if you ever heard about it. I'm not going to get you textbook, but there's the person that you know, the
Hmm.
person that you present yourself to the world as. Then there's another side, but really the biggest side is the part that no one knows. So it's the part that you're not seeing, other people don't know, and I really have valued understanding myself to the highest level. That's
Mhm.
why I feel less rigid now. I feel way more authentic. But yeah, so that's been my story.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
And some of my clients, they choose to work with both a therapist and a coach.
Yes,
And so I guess, yeah,
I
why not?
agree. I
Why not?
agree 100% because
Yeah.
I think therapists are limited. And this might sound shocking, like, oh, he's shooting himself in the foot. I don't think so. I think therapists are limited. And you'll probably never hear anyone say it, but I'll say it because they like to talking badly about coaches. But I'll tell you like this. Yes, coaches don't diagnose and whatever, but we're kind of bound by a lot of things. There's confidentiality, and I know coaches probably do the same too, but we're really bound by confidentiality. So much so that if you're my client and I see you in the street, according to the textbook, I'm supposed to turn and move the other direction. Like it's very weird and then once you bring up suicide, like the conversation stops because now I have to do an assessment. Do you get what I'm saying? There's this regulatory thing where I want to help people, but I'm constantly thinking, shit, what happens if the board hears about this? There's a
Mm.
sense of like, I don't want to be too active on social media for fear that this regulatory body will come and say, you're a clinician, you passed the board exam, and you're not supposed to. So I say it to say I think we're limited in some way, and maybe coaches are too. But yeah, so you need both. I think both is awesome.
My experience is the polar opposite
Really?
because like I collaborate, like I just did a workshop where my client and I
Uh huh.
taught a class together and we made money together. We
Nice.
advertised our faces off on social media. I mean, I did, and I was like talking about her experience, telling her story because it's a wonderful case study and an inspiring.
Just imagine, I had a client the other day, interestingly, an Asian male, and we come to the end of our time together. He says, "Steve, could I, I really love how much you've helped me. Could I take you to coffee or something? I just love to learn more about you." Do you know how heartbreaking that was to just have
Mm.
to explain all that? I would love to, man. Coolest person in the world. Yeah, but according to this, if you're going by the textbook and being Orthodox, you have to like. There's all these weird like, why can't I go to somebody's wedding? They might invite me, say, Steve, you've been such a help. And now I got to be awkward and say, well, I'm really not allowed to, and this and that
I
and
I
all.
have a question. I have a
Yeah.
question. A
Mhm.
couple years back, Jonah Hill.
Okay. Yeah. Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill made a documentary with his therapist. It's on
Really
Netflix.
interesting. I got to look that up.
Yeah. And Jonah Hill like reveals but like they do therapy in the movie. I forget exactly what it was called, but it was a really heartwarming. I mean, I liked it because, there's a therapeutic element to the work I do, and there's that
Yep.
one-on-one, that client coach, um, that the dynamic,
Right.
uh, that rapport, and it was so beautifully displayed in this movie.
Yes, I mean, imagine that. So in order for that to happen, because it can happen,
Yeah.
it becomes very legalistic. Like, okay, here's this disclosure form, or you're consenting that this is allowed or not, and if then this
Right.
it becomes so. Another, I don't know if you have intake forms, but we have to give out intake forms. I cringe when I see those forms. This is what
Uh,
therapy means. Sometimes you may distressing material. So yeah, but that's really cool. I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah. So sometimes therapists are like, we want to become coaches. And
Yeah,
every once in a while, a coach is like, I want to become a therapist. So,
I love both. I love, love,
yeah,
love, love both. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Okay. So before we wrap up, tell us,
Sure.
how would you describe your therapy style?
Okay, my therapy style. So I'm trained in something called EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, cognitive
Right.
behavioral therapy, all this type of stuff. But my approach is tailored to each person. So I
Mm,
believe that every person gets a different type of therapy. One
mm,
of the really, if it was to be a hallmark, so just like how I'm talking to you now is how I am as a therapist, I'm vulnerable. I don't monopolize by sharing too much about myself, obviously, but vulnerable. But I do something called here and now. And what that means is I let people know how they're coming across to me in real time. Most therapists do not do that. So let's say you're talking with people and you're like, I don't know why my dates aren't going well, or I don't know why this person keeps having this negative reaction. I will put myself in a vulnerable position and say, hey, Jamie, let me tell you what it's like for me to sit with you now. Most therapists don't like to do that. It feels very uncomfortable. So that's a hallmark of what I do. Just
mm.
giving people a window into like how they are actually are coming across to other people, which I think is cool.
That's so interesting. I do some of that in my coaching too.
Oh,
I'm
good.
like, okay, your facial expression right now. Imagine bringing this to that meeting, right? Like how open you feel. Just bring this to
Uh,
that email. Yeah, I do an element of that too. Very cool. Very cool.
yeah.
Well, where can people go to learn more about New York Wellness Counseling Services?
Yeah, you go to nywellness.com. You can check out the blog. That's where I post some of my blogs or really rants about the ways I think about therapy, ways I think about the world. And, so you can go there. You can find me on LinkedIn. And I have an Instagram. It's not that popular, but sometimes I post things there as well. And a YouTube channel. I haven't been active on there either. I probably should be. But yeah, if you want very short clips about how I think about the world or how I think about therapy, how I approach things, you can find it there too. The NY
Okay.
Wellness. Yeah.
All right. And this interview will also go on YouTube. So
Okay.
yeah. All
All
right.
right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on Risky Conversations. And so, what I'm learning from you is that the risky conversation you had, owning your career decision, is now serving many, many people who need expert mental health support in the New York, New Jersey area. So amazing. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Evan.